Well, good morning. This is George Wickstrom talking again about the economy and the environment. And then I'm going to talk about some thoughts that I have regarding where we are going as people and as a nation. So let's start off with a review of the economy and the environment. We've talked about this before, but the United States has never paid its bills except for borrowing money one way or the other, starting in 1946. And the debt on that, the interest on that debt is now just under $1 trillion. It's the biggest expense the federal government has. And by this time next year, it's going to be well over $1 trillion. There will be a point when we can't pay that because the debt is getting higher and higher. And the interest on our debt, while our credit, our bonds is relatively low at this point, as our credit and our debt increases, we become less attractive, and the interest is likely to rise. And so, with that happening, then with the printing of money. Which is the other way you pay our bill. Printing money is inflationary. So we got that double whammy facing us at some point in time, and we're going to have a big downsizing. I don't know when, but I would guess within 10 years, and because we haven't paid attention to paying our debt. And in addition to that debt, we've got unfunded liabilities for things that we have made or done, and that's not set aside any money to replace them or repair. Example, we have 36% of our roads, our bridges, so it's over 200,000 bridges that we've built, but there's no money set aside to fix them. It comes out of current income or borrowing. What else? Well, we have in the Clean Water Act of 1948 and acts after that, we put in sewer and water systems in towns. When I was young, it was not at all uncommon. And I was born in 1930, so I'll be 96 years old in about 2 months. It was very common to have a pump to pump water and an outhouse on your lot. Not very hygienic. And so the sewer and water systems were put in to fix that. Now, we just had one of those things go out in Medford. I've said this before, about 3 years or so ago. What happened? They didn't have $51,000 to make some repairs on their water treatment plant, and they dumped 38,000 gallons of raw sewage into our Street River. And guess what? They were tying into the Owatonna system, but they didn't have money to do that. They were just doing it. But John Jasinski was able to get a bonding bill set through for the state of Minnesota, and somehow some of that bonding was able to be transferred over to Medford. I don't know the mechanics of that at all. With that bonding bill, they now have the money to. That bill is over $1 million, as I understand it, with all the work with that. So, but the point is that we didn't set aside money for anything, and the federal debt is now at a point where it's totally unpayable. And then we've got these unfunded liabilities I just talked about that are over $300 trillion, included as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and 41,000 miles of roads put under Eisenhower, and on and on. And so all of that thing is happening. And so at some time we're going to have troubles. And people are not aware of it. We can't prepare for it. Human beings are adverse to changing their lifestyle. We've got a good life. We don't want to give it up, and I understand that. But look what we've done to our economy. Our economy now is based on 40% of the things that are wants, things that we don't really need, but they're good. They're good to have. But that's too much. 10% is okay. How does that affect us? Well, our president was telling us that China is ripping us off by coming in and selling goods at cheaper rates than we can make them in the United States. Do you think that that 40% makes any difference in our cost of doing business? You bet it does, and it makes us more or less competitive. That's part of the problem. But in addition to that, I understand labor and other costs in China are much lower than ours. But we make it a lot worse when we have these things that we buy. An example, one of the largest cruise ships that I'm aware of is the Icon of the Seas. That ship has a capacity of 3 times the capacity of the Titanic. That is, as I understand it, it's 9,950 people, passengers and crew, 7 swimming pools. Many of them are small for kids. And bigger cars. I just read now people are going for bigger cars even now. But guess what? The repossession rates on cars right now is near at an all-time high. People are buying things on credit. What else is happening with credit? Credit cards were not even thought of when I was a kid. How old are they now? I don't know, but it's probably within the last 30, 40 years. And credit cards are unregulated credit. You sign your credit card and you got some money. So the free of spending in this country has changed at warp speed. And the price of things. When I was young, my mother used to send me to the bakery to get bread. The bread was 9 cents or 10 cents a loaf. What is bread now? $3 to $4, 30 to 40% more. Cars, my dad bought a brand new car in 1947, $1,585. I remember that because I got the car from him when he bought another different car. Well, guess what? A new car like that today is it's probably $40,000 or $50,000. Everything is going up, and that's because of a big part of it is because of the way the money is being used or spent or debt by the federal government. And we've got to realize that. And the only thing I can tell people to compensate for that is live within your income. And the best way to do that is to take a look at where you spend your money. There's a couple of rules that you can follow. And one is that we spent 80% of our money on 20% of the items that we use. So look at that 20% and see where you can save. And try to find ways to, if you're driving to run errands during the week, try to combine as many as you possibly can. What about how we dress our clothes? I've gone to people. I have a friend. I went to a seminar in Chicago when I was active in the business, and he took a shower in the morning and a shower at night. Give me a break. How many showers do you need a week? In some cases, 1 a week is enough. If you don't have, but I don't think many people take 1 a week. But 1 a day is more than enough. Someplace in there. And how do we clothes? I've got relatives. My son and has 3 daughters. They wear a skirt or a blouse once. It's in the wash. And I say to people, we are washing clothes out rather than wearing them out. When you put the clothes in the dryer, you take off that screen, all that dust comes from the clothes, and you're wearing them out. Think of all those things like that you can do on your own to save money and save resources. Let's talk a little bit now about environmental things. The amount of water that's available to us as humans out of the total amount of water in the world is 3%. And of that 3%, only 1% is available. There's 2 places in which that water is the maximum. In Greenland, there's a big chunk of ice. That ice is big as about 110 times more water in that ice than there is in the 5 Great Lakes Think about that. The 5 Great Lakes, I think, is a lot of water. That block of ice is 110 times more water in that block of ice in Greenland. The other big block is down in Antarctica. It's 1.2 miles thick on the average, with 5 million square miles. And how do we get that water up here? How do we get that water out of the big block in Greenland? It's not very available to us, and we don't even own the land in Greenland. I think Denmark owns that. So those things have to be understood. Where do we get our water now? Well, the Columbia River. We've talked about this before too. The Columbia River irrigates about 5.5 million acres of land. It's desert land, but it's fertile. And then we also have Lake Mead in which we pump water over the mountains into California to make fruits and vegetables. Okay, we knew 40 or 50 years ago that the Colorado River could only sustain 60% of the amount of water, amount of use of that water. We didn't make any changes. Now that's coming up on us. We're going to see declining water going to the Columbia River, or Colorado River, and then we're going to see a declining amount of fruits and vegetables coming from that area. The cost of food is going to go up. How fast? Maybe not very much, a little bit every day, but it's going to get worse and worse. It's going to compound. What else? Oh, we've got our Ogallala Aquifer that covers 8 states: Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. And actually, one more thing is the east coast of Iowa. Now, that I read in 1912 that was half gone, and it would be in 25 years, it would be gone. Well, what's 12 from 25? That's 13, so it's 7. 7 years to 12 years, that would be gone. So let's just say 10 years it's going to be gone. We get a big percentage of our, 20 to 25% of our agricultural products come from that area. That includes corn and beans and raising cattle and all this kind of thing. We're going to be stretched. Water's gone. What else? Well, the town that Faribault lives in what I think is called the Jacob or Johnson, I think, aquifer. And that's 6 towns. Six towns. It's Pine Island, Apple Valley, Cannon Falls, Faribault, and a lake town. I can't think of 2 more towns. But they're on that aquifer, and we're using it at a much faster rate than it's being replenished. And our city fathers have not paid a lot of attention to that. And we're not the only one. There's other towns that are doing the same thing. We're going to, when that water is gone, it's gone, because there won't be anything to draw from it. And so those are things that we got to be worried about. And how do we use our water? That's a big change in our life, how we're going to use water. So in the changes in human society, if you just look at the progression of life, we're told that it's 300,000 or 400,000 years ago, the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens, were living in community. And someplace in there, the Neanderthals dropped out completely. But that's about the time that our spirituality and so forth was developed. People started burying things with the dead and so forth. But look at the change from that point to just 1700. About the time we starting our country and getting our economies and our countries established. it was a very slow move from that area for maybe 10, 12,000 years. But look what we've done in less than 100 years. We've gone at warp speed. We can't even imagine how you compare those last 60 or 80 years to what's happened in the previous 10 or 12,000 years. Those are things that concern me a lot, and that we all, I think, should be aware of, because if we don't pay attention to how we use our stuff, we're going to pay a price. And so looking at ways we could conserve, and doing a good job on how you use things will make a difference. And it's going to be a matter of being survival for a lot of people, because some people won't have enough money. Look, we've got 1% of our population owns 30% of the assets, and 5% use 2/3 of the assets. We've got 46 million people living in poverty. A country like this should not have that. When we got children raised in poverty, I don't care whether you're liberal or conservative, that ain't good. Someone once told me that every child is entitled to a happy home and an opportunity for success through education. And I believe that if an economy doesn't pay attention to that, it pays a price. Do all these kids come into crime? No, they don't. I think we got as much crime at the top end of our society as we do at the bottom. But that's debatable, I understand. But the point is that we've got to use our resources more equitably. See, in nature, capitalism follows the laws of nature to this extent. Survival of the fittest. There were at one time, over the years, over 100 different makes of cars. Some of them were only one or two. But gosh, how many cars you have left in the United States now? There are about three manufacturers. And I could be wrong on that part. There's very few. And so, but what happens in business, it's survival of the fittest, and those that don't make it go broke. But guess what? What we're doing in this country, the money sticks at the top. In nature, the deers and the wolves, if the wolves get too populated, the deer population goes way down, and then the wolves starve. And it goes the other way, goes back and forth. Nature balances, but capitalism doesn't. The money sticks at the top through oligarchies and politics and you name it. And we've got to be aware of those things. And it balances out to ethics and responsibility and be concerned about our country and doing things for the long run that's thought out. There was a Supreme Court judge that was appointed by Ronald Reagan in 1988, and he resigned in 2018. I don't remember his first name. I think it was Arthur or Archer or something. His last name was definitely Kennedy. And he had a philosophy or a statement or a practice that he said, when you do or say something, know why you're doing it or saying it, and be able to explain it efficiently to other people. Think it through. The other thing is, always respect those who disagree with you. Say, respect those that disagree with you. I believe that if in my life, I like to talk with people who disagree with me, because it's an opportunity for you to challenge my own beliefs. I think I've done a good job in terms of understanding the economy and the environment, but I could be wrong on some of these things. I would say that probably about 90% I'm right on that, but so there's a possibility I could be wrong. So I'm open to discussions. And I'll also say this, if any of you folks have an interest in talking with me one-on-one, I've said this before, I've never had anybody take me up, never. But here's my phone number, 507-323-5239. 507-323-5239. I'm open to a phone call. We can talk. I'll even buy you lunch to talk about this stuff. Let's look at our behavior. That is another concern, how we communicate. When I was young, we had party lines. You'd call the operator, and she'd connect you to the party that you wanted to talk with. But at the same time, you had the benefit of getting 4 or 5 other people at the same time. So you didn't want to discuss anything too personal of that. Then that graduated when our phone number, I remember the number, in Roselle, Illinois, 4147. I punched in 4147, or pick it up and talk to the operator. She plugged me into the one that she wanted to, that I wanted to talk with. It was all done physically. Now today, we've got these cell phones that are a little more than a phone. You can do research on them. You can get on the internet with it. It's an incredible change. Now, what does that do? See, when the first phone calls that we were making were a person-to-person thing, guess what? Now we have the opportunity to text, to email. Now, these are not all bad, but they're not personal. Eyeball to eyeball is the best way to communicate. Phone is next best, but the farther you get from the personal contact, the less human we become, as from my perspective. And we're being less concerned about people when we don't have that personal contact. Now, that's my view. You can argue with that, but that troubles me. People need personal contacts to be effective and also feel better about ourselves. We can be compassionate, but you don't get very compassionate with an email. You're not very compassionate with texting. And with the inflection on our voices when we talk, we also send a message. So with the farther we get from those kinds of things, the less human we become. And I think the less concern we have for others. Am I right? I don't know, but that's my sense. So I'd like you to think about that. When we communicate, I'm a patient of a medical firm, and I used to be able to call into an operator and get an appointment. Well, that doesn't work anymore. You get a hold of you call a number, and that'll refer you to another number, and then that number will take a message to get to someplace else. And just recently, I have a problem with my right knee, and I got an injection in it about 3-4 weeks ago. And that injection was the wrong material. I called in. They rescheduled me, so I'm going to have 3 more injections. But guess what? The distance between that call and when I get my first start is over a month. I'm sitting here with a knee, and try to communicate with somebody to get that moved up. It's very difficult. The communications in the medical system, to me, are bad. The one-on-one, yeah, they're good. And I'm an old guy. I know I'm having trouble with the systems in terms of how we put things together. But all of these things are compounding to the point that we're losing touch with our responsibility to be kind. There was the little boy in this Immaculate School up in Minneapolis, Ascension School, I think, or Ascension School. There was a little boy named Warner. It was in the newspaper and it was on some of the news. But he was injured in that event, but he just had a very small wound in his neck. And so they didn't take care of him right away because the other children were much more severely injured. And so they got to him and they said, well, let's take an x-ray. they found out that little wound was made by a piece of shrapnel that went all the way down to his carotid artery. And that was a very serious operation. And so they had the parents and Werner in a meeting with the doctor. And they asked Werner, do you think we should leave that in your... He said, no, I don't want anything bad in my body because of that bad day. His parents had to make the decision, but they thought, yeah, he's a young child, 10 years old, and he's got a lot to life there. And if that thing is in his neck for the rest of his life, something could happen that would be sports or who knows what. So they said, yes, let's take the risk. So they went to a different doctor, and that doctor, and I've got the reprint out of the Sunday paper about a month ago now. It's a beautiful article by the doctor. But anyway, the doctor asked the little boy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Werner thought for a minute. What did he say? I want to be nice. That blew the doctor out of the water because he had never had seen it before. It's based on that, this doctor wrote an article about how that little boy impressed him. See, so being kind and nice is becoming less and less part of our lives. We've got to be nice people. We've got to be thoughtful people. We don't have to be wimps. We have to know do a good job of thinking through what the priorities are and what is most important. And we have to worry about our own character. I'm 96 years old, or that will be in 2 months. I'm a long way from a perfect person, but I have a little process that I go through almost every night when I go to bed. I talk with my former wife, and she's been gone over 10 years. And May 20th, 8 minutes to 6, 2013 is when she passed away. And but the thing is that our character is something that we can constantly build, become better people. And there's ways we can do it. I've been involved in a program called the Virtues Project. And the Virtues Project is a way for us to take a list we have 100 virtues, and we can go through that process and pick the ones that you think you'd like to work on for yourself. Everything takes time and work. What's most important? I think one of the most important things that we own is our character. How we reflect on people, and how we try to accomplish things and communicate. It's all part of our character. And so those are, I think this is almost enough for one day. And I thank you for listening and hope this has been somewhat helpful to you. Take care.